You're listening to the New Artist Workshop.
Call me Bruce, champ.
I'm just so jazzed to meet you, sir.
I'm sorry, did you say jazzed?
Yes! My name's Richard Grayson, but all the kids at the orphanage call me Dick.
Well, children can be cruel.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast. Now that's what I call a franchise. I'm Peter Mancuso.
And I'm Viviana Metzger, and this is the show where Peter and I pick a film franchise and go through every single installment. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And to be clear, we're defining a franchise as a series of films with at least 4 entries. So, Viviana, what are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about the 2017 film, The Lego Batman Movie. And this is, of course, your one and only spoiler warning, so if you haven't watched the movie, go do that before listening to this episode.
The biggest flaw of this movie, it does not feature Everything is Awesome from the Lego movie.
That's true.
That's the biggest flaw of this movie.
But it's like the same people, you know?
It's the exact same...
And you can tell because of the abyss.
Yeah, it's meant to... We'll get there. Because potentially we should not have included this.
Like...
Potentially? Because it's like, is it part of... Is there a Lego franchise, or is that far too broad? Because, like, Lego can be anything.
Just a style?
Yeah, that's the question. But this is very much, like, related to the Lego movie.
Yeah.
So, could you argue that those are a franchise, and this is part of it? Because it's, like, the same version of Batman and, like, similar lore.
I will watch it again, if that's the case. If that's the case.
Well, why don't you read the Letterboxd
Chris
blurb?
McKay, didn't he? He did the last one, too.
No.
I mean, not the last one, but the Everything is Awesome.
No, that was Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I believe.
Oh.
Who did.
I've heard Chris McKay before.
He was involved with the other ones.
I've seen that name before.
Chris McKay. Well, I think his most recent...
yes, the Lego Movie.
Yes, I think he was like an assistant director.
Okay, I've seen it.
He's not credited as like...
Oh, and Renfield.
Yes, I was gonna say
Okay. Okay. I was like, I'm not crazy. I've definitely seen this man's name with some Legos. Oh, and Dungeons and Dragons too.
He directed Dungeons and Dragons? The new one?
I don't know if he directed it, but...
Anyway, why don't you read the Letterboxd blurb?
Anywho. What up, Chris? Alright. Here's the blurb.
Here's the blurb. Get ready. People are always like, what's the word? But here, it's what's the blurb. Okay.
It's like media buzz, right? First story. Bzz.
Yeah.
The irreverent spirit of fun that made the Lego Movie a worldwide phenomenon. The self-described leading man of that ensemble, Lego Batman, stars in his own big screen adventure. But there are big changes brewing in Gotham, and if he wants to save the city from the Joker's hostile takeover, Batman may have to drop the lone vigilante thing. try to work with others and maybe, just maybe, learn to lighten up.
I do like how the Letterboxd blurbs, like, this is a great one in that it reflects the tone of the movie. And maybe,
so
just maybe, learn to lighten up. Okay, so here's some basic...
Drop the lone vigilante thing.
Just drop that whole lone vigilante thing. So here's some basic info. It was directed by Chris McKay, like we were talking. Up to this point, his big claim to fame, in terms of being like the lead director, was he was best known for directing and editing multiple episodes over 3 seasons of Robot Chicken.
Oh, Robot Chicken, yes!
It was written by, like, 5 people here. It was written by Seth Grahame-Smith, Chris McKenna, Erik Sommers, Jared Stern, and John Whittington. A few notable things here. So Grahame-Smith wrote Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. When like that era of like, let's take these historical things and make them like horror-y.
Yeah.
McKenna wrote Igor. Remember the animated like that bargain bin movie kind of
guy.
And then Stern wrote Mr. Popper's Penguins.
Mr. Popper's
I know you
Penguins.
Like, yeah.
Hell yeah.
It was produced by Dan Lin, Phil Lord, and Chris Miller, and Roy Lee. Dan Lin had produced Sherlock Holmes, the Robert Downey Jr.
the
one,
Robert Downey,
and
yeah.
the original Lego Movie. Lauren Miller is a directing duo. They did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, 21 Jump Street, and Lego Movie. So like a real banger after banger. Those are the 22 Jump Street, but I think that was after. No, that was. I don't know. And then Lee also produced the Lego Movie, and I believe like the rebooted Godzilla that had Bryan Cranston and Millie Bobby Brown in it. That came out.
Today's.
Not the one that came out recently. No.
Okay.
It was distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. It was released in February of 2017. It was made for about $80 million and grossed about $312 million. So a pretty decent profit.
Because people were excited based off of the Lego Movie.
Which itself, I don't know how well that did at the box office, but I remember there was a lot of like controversy because that movie was so beloved, but it got shut out of like the Academy Awards. Like it didn't even get nominated for Best Animated Film. But yeah, so the Lego Movie was made for about 60 and made about 468. So that was very successful.
Yeah.
That first one. And I think similarly with this one, we'll talk about in the trivia, this one was also not nominated for Best Animated Feature. And I'll save it for the trivia bit because it's funny because it relates to me and my interests. So if you remember a specific animated film that came out in 2017 that people did not like and was nominated, which we're going to save.
Boss, baby!
It rhymes with Ross Rabies. One of my favorite.
Rhymes with Sister
Please. So Vivian, what's your previous experience? As we established, you cheated on me and watched this like literally like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, you can't say that phrase because it sounds like you're saying it romantically. But
why would I be saying it A on this podcast? And B, saying it so jovially and like jokingly. If that were true, why would I anyway? What's your so you've seen this before, but it was very recent.
Anywho.
So you didn't see it when it came out, let's kind of go back to that, I guess.
Yeah, well, okay, so to go back even further, I really kind of slept on the Lego Movie, and
as did I.
What did it
I did not see that when it came out.
2014. Yeah, so I was like 15, and at the time I was like babysitting like these little boys who would like watch and be obsessed with like the Lego Movie, and everyone was like, oh, everything is awesome, blah blah blah, and I thought it was like really kind of annoying and childish, but then I found
the point of that song is that it's meant to be really annoying, like it's kind of like a commentary off of like animated kids movies like that,
and
but
that was still like kids were still playing like what is it called, not Roblox, it was Minecraft and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if Roblox, I don't know if that was a thing yet in 2014. I think it was. I think that's been a thing since we were kids, but I didn't know about it.
Oh, but it was like the Minecraft, like, Lego Movie kind of strange, weird time. So I was like, oh, I don't really want to watch this movie. I'm not interested. It's probably going to be stupid anyways. And then I finally watched it. I don't know when I watched it, actually.
But you had seen it before you and I had watched it.
That's random. Maybe. I don't know. But I've seen it since. Love it. It's great. It's funny. Hilarious. And...
But you knew this one existed, right?
What? Batman?
Lego Batman movie.
Yeah, so I knew that this one existed because, like, I had been in the theaters before and saw, like, the trailers for, like, the Lego Ninjago and then, like, the Lego Batman and
which I believe was not super well received. The Ninjago one. Like, it was kind of like Lego Movie, Lego Batman, and then Ninjago.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like they had basically had like 2 home runs in a row, and then that third one I believe was like people found kind of underwhelming comparatively.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And people didn't really love the second Lego Movie that much either.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, and so I've seen the second one too.
We started together it was early in our relationship because it was like winter of 20. It was like
that's right.
We'd only been dating for like 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
Oh, I felt so silly being a grown up going to see the Lego Movie, and there's just like families with a gaggle of children.
No, there's no shame. Like, how do you think I feel when I do reviews for movies and I'm by myself? At least you and I were together, and we were in college. I now, in the present day, as a 27-year-old bald man, am at like 3 p.m. screenings of like these children's films. It's like the people are probably like, who is this guy coming in?
Like when we watched Marcel the Shell.
That's not a kid's movie though. Come on.
Oh,
That's adults like that. That's for adults.
It's not for adults. It's definitely marketed towards children.
No, it's the opposite. It was made for adults. It's like an indie darling. Like,
Oh, well.
It's
attractive to children because it's
that's different than
it's a talking shell.
There's difference
with
between
shoes.
because it's whimsical.
Anywho. So yes, I have always wanted to watch the Lego movies, but I just haven't gotten a chance to. So what I've seen so far is the Lego Movie 2, and then about a month ago, Lego Batman. And my mind was blown. And it was the greatest piece of cinema I had ever seen.
So talk about that experience. I remember you texted me or we spoke on the phone about it. About how, like, because we've been doing this podcast,
yeah,
you picked up on so much more of, like, the gags that kind of went over, like, the heads of, like, your sisters.
Yes.
Not because they're dumb, but just they don't know. Like, you've watched the serials.
There's so many references.
Which there's a very quick one, but they do reference the serials.
And there's literally a clip
like
of the Batsui. Is it Batsui?
Batusi.
Batusi?
The dance.
Yeah, the dance. So this time around, I kind of just, like, enjoyed it for what it was, but, like, watching it the first time around, like, my mind was blown, and I was, like, just so appreciative of, like I got all of those little things, and so it was just, like, even more hilarious because I was like, wait, what? How, like, they really know their stuff. Like, they've really done their homework. It's not just, like, most Batman things where I feel like it's just, like, you know, created or whatever. It's like they know the lore and they're, like, calling upon it.
It's very self-referential.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but I just thought that was pretty funny. And then some things were also creative. I don't know if they're creative, but like they're silly, but then it you know, it goes into what things are today. Kind of like the, what was it, the cereal where they, like, pinned up a bad guy to the light and it looked like a bat.
Well, that was in Batman Begins.
Oh yeah, Batman Begins. And so
that was done, like, in earnest. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
I feel like they did it in another one too, but maybe not. So
probably
something like that. There were things like that where it just, like, kind of where things just kind of came in naturally, but also it was just, like, funny, and it really knows, like, what it is and kind of, like, where people stand or where these things stand in a pop culture lexicon and you know, referencing and whatnot. So I just thought that was really cool. And then on top of that, they're also, like, total nerds bringing in all these other bad guys, and I was like, what is Sauron doing in the Lego Batman movie? But as, like, as a Lord of the Rings fan, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. And they had the Daleks, and it was so funny because they were like, oh, ask your friends. I was like, Doctor Who! Yeah. I was like, I know the references. And I actually turned to my sister.
Honey, we've complained with Indiana Jones about the member berries.
I know.
But now you're really eating those member berries. You're like, I know that thing!
I don't know. It just hits different because I feel like at first I didn't...
You feel rewarded for having watched all.
Yeah, because I
Which
got
is what fan service is, like, really based in, is, like, it's a reward for people who, like, know, who have spent the time to become really well versed in all of them.
Yeah, like, I was so appreciative that we've been doing this because
thank you.
Because there was stuff that was referenced, like you said, like, from the serials, like, back in the day, like, weird stuff, and just, like, you know, it takes the character not as, like, what it is right now, but it really involves everything. And it's like, oh, you've been, like, what did he say? It was like, oh, you've
gone through different phases and stuff. And, like,
you've gone through different phases, but then he's like, oh, you've been Gotham's, like, #1 Bachelor for 90 years in a row or something like that.
For like 78 years or whatever.
Yeah.
It is. Like,
So, yeah, I don't know, but like, it was difficult because, or it's not difficult this time around, but like the first time like watching the Lego movie, I didn't really understand it because like, I guess I didn't really understand that type of humor, and I think that says the same thing with like the Caped Crusader, is that I don't know. Sometimes I feel bad about it, like laughing at something, but it's like making fun of itself. So it's like, oh, they want us to.
Yeah, it's
or
in
like,
on the joke. The idea here is that like
I know.
it's because this is a Warner Brothers film.
Yeah.
It's not like someone is making like a fan thing and just making fun of it, which would be fine.
Yeah.
And people do that. But I think if you're worried about the ethical, I mean, I don't really think it's a big deal, but if it makes you feel better, it's Warner Brothers. Like, it is Batman TM. You know what I mean?
I know. I guess I just didn't realize that it was like a whole thing to like kind of make fun of yourself or like make fun of the work. So that
I would
was
say it's more of a
kind of strange to me.
It's poking fun at its sillier aspects.
Yeah.
But I would consider it more of a celebration than a parody.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's like such a mixture of humor that like the Lego movie at first like didn't really like resonate well with me, but I think over time I grew to like it because I started to understand it better, and this has like the same feel. I mean, pretty much like half the, what would you call them, the directorial executive cast.
What the fuck are you saying? The what?
The people, like the writers, producers, directors.
The creative team?
The creative team, yes. Not the like sound boom people.
No, like the real, like the authors in a sense. And
Yeah.
not the but like the creative team.
So those guys, I mean, it's basically all the same people, except for a few, but
and well, Lord and Miller did produce this, right? So it's not like they're uninvolved.
yeah, so it definitely has like the same vibes, and that was something that I was looking forward to, and yeah, something I really appreciated, and I think they also like mixed in different humor, and what's also interesting about the Lego movies is that like they're not necessarily like really bad stories either, like narratives, like
They are or they are not.
they're not, like, you know,
They're good yeah, they're well written too. It's not just
you know
like
how like sometimes like animated films or like comedy films are kind of just like on the plot, or like it's not really
the
nothing.
script is just a necessary evil to have the comedy or have the whatever it is. But whereas you're saying it's like the script is not an afterthought. Like it's the root
Batman
of the...
has a character arc, like you know what I'm saying?
He does. That's
So
the
it's
thing,
like,
is that like there is a story here.
Not only is it like fun, but it's also like well made, and so I think that's impressive, and also like its reach. I mean, I don't know how many adults like actively go out to like watch these things, but like, you know, there's obviously the huge draw to kids.
The film community really loves the Lego movie. It's maybe not like normal adults, but people who like movies really like the Lego movie.
Yeah, and then there's like older people too, like, you know, they're like, what is his name? He's like, my name is Richard Grayson, but all the kids at the orphanage call me Dick. And he's like, well, kids can be cruel.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like that stuff, but also like silly. And yeah, I don't know. I was really surprised about the whole like villain thing. I was not expecting that.
Well, here's something I wonder about that.
Yeah, I don't know what more to say. I'm just kind of rambling at this
No,
point.
this is great.
But I love it.
This is great. The fans want to hear from you. I'm not trying to monopolize the conversation. We want to hear from you.
And
the problem is that I just have too much to say. And I do have a lot to say about this one too, but I want to kind of give you your...
And they also, like I said, with doing their homework, it's not just like blatantly referencing to, I feel like there's some like kind of more subtle things. that's just something that I thought of right now. But like when like in the beginning, and the mayor has to talk to Joker.
Voiced by Mariah Carey.
So random. Such a randomly large check to have to cut, but whatever.
I don't know.
And then it turns out to be Batman, but like remember that time with that like Nazi boob lady and
I think that was like a reference to that.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
In The Dark Knight Returns, where he's pretending to be an old woman, and it's actually Bruce Wayne in like an old woman.
Turns out looking like Pacha. I know, that's what I'm saying. Is that like they're like really good. They like really. I feel like they were doing what we're doing before they wrote the script. I don't know.
What do you mean they were doing what we were doing?
Like just like watching.
Watching them all.
Everything.
You can tell that there is an understanding of the franchise.
Yeah.
That they're not just vapid references.
Yeah.
There are some times where it's kind of just like, remember this thing? But then other times it's things where it's like, you would have to like actually know and be a fan of that thing to have made that, to have thought of that joke.
Yeah, or at least know, like the history of the character and whatnot. Like you said, when Alfred changes into his suit, he's like, "Oh, I miss the '60s," and it's like he's wearing the Batman suit from the '60s
Adam West outfit,
with the little eyebrows and stuff, you know. And I thought it was funny because of like the conversations that we've had about about Robin, especially like in the serial films, and just like his costume of being like, is he a young boy or is he a grown man? And either way, why is he not wearing pants?
It's weird in both directions.
And I thought it was funny because, like, in this one, he's like the reggae costume.
So that's why it's an R, conveniently.
Yeah, and then also it's like
reggae man.
It's also the red and yellow and green. And then he's like, "Oh, like this is a great costume. I love everything except, you know, these pants are kind of tight. I don't really feel like I could fight in these."
He's like, there we go.
He's just not wearing any leggings or anything.
You know who voices Robin?
Who?
Michael Cera.
Oh, that's right.
Very funny.
And then also ties into, I think it pretty, I would be so surprised if they didn't, you know, use some of the past stuff, or the older stuff for inspiration for this, but
older Batman.
But
stories?
as we can see, But as we can see, they obviously did. But the whole like fascism thing, you know, and working outside of the law, and you know, working with the police or working alongside the police, and like you know, kind of his place in society, you know, at least in terms of like Gotham. Mm-hmm. And apparently he doesn't pay taxes. Well, that's, you know, probably why he keeps doing what he's doing, because he doesn't see that the tax rates are rising from all the infrastructure damage that has been done. But yeah, so I like that. I just feel like you can appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Or like someone like me can appreciate it because we've seen all this stuff. Mm-hmm.
Again, it rewards you for having invested
a
lot of attention and time into the franchise.
Yeah, which I was not expecting. Which I was expecting it to be like a little bit more like surface level, I guess. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
So I had seen this before.
Yes.
Going back to the previous experience with the movie.
Sorry.
This is good. And I have some thoughts, obviously, too, and I'm sure those will inspire more thoughts in you. And that's how a conversation's supposed to work.
Oh shit! I guess you're right.
Yeah, that's how conversations work. Yeah, I saw this like when it came out in February. Because I remember we walked to the theater from our dorm near Union Square to AMC Kips Bay on 33rd Street, and it had just like snowed. I think it was like President's Day weekend, or something. So it had just snowed. So I remember having to. It was hard to walk 20 blocks or whatever it was. Why would we have walked? Because it's.
Why didn't you just take the train?
I don't know why we didn't just take the train. I don't know. Anyway, so I saw it. And I remember liking it, but not loving it. Mm-hmm. And I was curious to see how I would feel watching it this time. Mm-hmm. And now having seen it a second time, I think I feel exactly the same. That everything I liked about it, I still like just the same, and everything I had issues with, I have issues with at the same level. It just kind of reinforced what I had thought 6 or 7, well, at this point, 7 years ago, which is crazy to think about.
I know. Crazy.
But why don't we, before I kind of give you my thoughts, let's do some background info. Would that sound? Would you be amenable to that?
I would.
Okay, so in terms of its development, in October 2014, so the Lego Movie came out like in early 2014, I believe, like January or February.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. So in October 2014, following the success of the Lego Movie, Warner Brothers greenlit multiple Lego films, including the Lego Batman movie, a spin-off starring Batman. Very makes sense. Chris McKay, who co-directed the Lego Movie. So this is something in animation that I've always found confusing.
Wait, yes.
No, but here's. That makes it sound like there was like a group of directors of equal authority, and he was one of them. But in animation, there will be like the directors, and then below them are the co-directors.
Directors.
It's not equals.
Of directors.
Like you would think, like if there's 2 people directing a movie, they are co-directors. But in at least in animation, I know because I've noticed this in Pixar films. Like when we watch the credits, it'll be like Pete Docter director, and then it'll list like 4 people as the co-directors. So really, they're like assistant directors. But so when it says co-directed, that it doesn't mean that he was one of the primary directors. It's very confusing. I don't know why they do that.
Okay.
Anyways, Chris McKay, who co-directed the Lego Movie, was brought on board to direct the film, making it his solo directorial debut. In an interview about his work on the film, McKay stated that working on the film was a, quote, very mixed blessing, end quote, owing partly to the film's hectic time schedule for its production, remarking that the 2.5 years allocated to the film made it difficult to fit in everything that he wanted for the movie, considering his earlier work on the Lego Movie. So that's a pretty quick turnaround time for an animated film of this scope. And it looks great. The animation wise, it's very beautiful in terms of the way it's rendered, and like it's very, very just well.
And something that I like with this one is that it doesn't go into the real world. Whereas like I found that like very jarring, like watching the Lego movie.
Well, don't get me on a tangent.
I thought that was so weird.
Well, so here's my little like spiel. Maybe I should do like a video essay about this. Is I feel like the Lego Movie is great until like that last 20 minutes they fumble the ball. When they bring him into the real world, I don't mind that plot point because it's a logical next step for the story. The issue is that like the POV, like, because throughout that movie he starts to get flashes of like the, I don't know what do they call it, the creator, or like there's like a word they use for like the little boy, and it's like kind of like it's almost like impressionistic. We're just getting like these flashes of like this larger than life shadowy figure, right? And I felt that was great because it's like, we know what that is. Yes. But it keeps the POV firmly within the world of these characters. But then when they bring it outside the world, it's like very clear now. It's like, ha ha ha, like he's in like a workshop, like a real dude's basement, and it's like a little kid running around, and it's the dad. Like I feel that kind of undermined. Like, you built such an incredible world that I want to stay in, and I feel like that kind of undermined what you were doing. Like, we already understood that this is what was happening.
Well,
it's because you wanted to kind of make this, like, this analogy for, like, this father-son relationship, which I found kind of, like, a little bit, like, twee. In a sense, like kind of, like, overly sentimental, or, like, kind of, like, Disney Channel-esque. Like, this is the big issue, is just, like, the dad won't let the son play with his toys. Like, it feels very, like, underwhelming compared to, like... But... The point is because they want to make this analogy about Lord Business, aka President Business, about being a control freak, right? And it's this idea about like letting go, and right, and that's interesting. And you could have still had it be an analogy, but let us fill in the blanks. Yeah. And so it's like we still see like the shadowy side, and you hear like a voice that's like that's probably the father. Like, don't mess up my stuff, you know. Yeah. So I completely agree with you that I didn't like that in that movie. So it's like nearly great movie, but that kind of ruins it in the end for me.
Yeah, a little. And like, you don't have to.
So this movie does not do that, is the point.
And you definitely don't have to do that, but if you were to, I wouldn't even mind a zoom, like a push in the beginning of the film, Right.
Like start us in the real world and then just leave us there.
And then and then go
into the Lego world.
Into the Lego world and stay there.
That's a good point. That's another option.
We know the context, of why they're not just like, it's not just a style, right, of animation. It's like
it is very much like someone playing with Legos.
Yeah.
And again, not to go on tangents, so bringing back to this, like you do see that here too, where it's like they do the thing where it's like I was kind of charming in the first one, but it's kind of gotten annoying here, where it's like instead of like laser sounds like pew pew pew, and then like someone going like nope, scanning for bat, like it's like hot. But it was kind of charming in the first one, but it wasn't great, and it kind of just like annoying here. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a sourpuss.
No, it is silly, but I also
because this one especially because it's very much not really about being someone playing with Legos. Like that's the implication because it's all meant to be like the same universe.
Yeah.
But it's not really made like a narrative or thematic point the way that the other one was.
Yeah.
Where it was like it would include things like crazy glue, like real objects.
Yes.
This one has nothing like that.
Yeah.
So it's weird that they're still doing like the idea that it's still someone playing with toy. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I am a little. I do get a little like critical of that when that happens. Because it is silly and can be kind of annoying, and like also it's like hard to hear someone talking if someone's going pew pew pew. But then I tell myself, I'm like, oh, well, you have to make the noise for the Legos. They're not just gonna make the noise themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Anyhow,
I deal with it. I don't.
Bringing it back, you're able to cope.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Bringing it back to this, so Chris McKay's work on the Lego Batman movie was influenced by comedy portrayed in both the Naked Gun and Airplane film series, with his pitch for the film to the studios being described as like, quote, Jerry Maguire as directed by Michael Mann.
It's so random that he's watching Jerry Maguire.
Well, because they have this plot thread about him,
I never
like their
seen
relationship between, like this weird romantic subtext between Batman and the Joker. I've never seen Jerry Maguire either, but just this idea he's watching romance movies, right?
Yeah.
And this idea that but then again, the film kind of like has a mixed metaphor, because is it about his, is it meant to kind of be like this parody and weird romantic subtext between him and the Joker, but as villain hero relationship,
No.
or is it about him and finding a family? Because I feel like they're not contradictory ideas, but like they're trying to do both ideas.
I think it's
but they're not the same
close
idea.
relationships in general, and that's why it's like always like the romantic comedies or whatever. It's like, it's not like necessarily that he's like looking for his love or like his mortal enemy, but I think it's just like kind of letting people in closer in general.
That's what I think, but they don't really make that connection of like, well, I guess they kind of do, right? In the end, I don't know if they make it explicit enough for that thematic connection to resonate, because they end up resolving his arc in that he needs to open up and like let people be his family, and he opens up and basically is like, Joker, we can't do this without you, like we have to be mortal enemies together. Like those are like, you connected those. I don't know if the movie connects those.
Yeah.
Again, it's not like it's an issue. It's just like it's not something that they could have taken it a little bit further.
Yeah. It is weird, like that relationship, but I mean, based on what we've watched, I guess that is like a thing, right? So like maybe Batman and Joker really are gay. I don't know.
No, but it's not. I don't think this movie, it's meant to be like they actually love each other. It's just playing on the idea of like, we're gonna contextualize their hate relationship as a romance. So it's like, I'm open to hating other people. Like it's more like for laughs.
No, yeah.
So I would even argue that they don't even do that thematically. Like it's just the family stuff that's thematic.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of like a side piece.
It's really more just for comedy, and I don't know if it's ever really. Again, like you could make the connection, but I don't know if the movie is doing that. I don't know if the movie is being explicit enough for that to resonate in a real way. But
I guess
I'm not trying to rain on the parade here. That's what this episode is going to be: is me talking about a movie I think is quite good, But because everyone always talks about that, I have to be the contrarian voice and just talk about the things that I feel.
Well, maybe it's just admitting that people are close to you, or that you care about,
or you need people.
You know, or that you need people.
You can't do it all alone, and that's a really big part of this.
Yeah, and I think that's just like communicating it, and that's why.
And that's something the comics have been really big on. And we've talked about is like the Bat family. This idea of like this extended kind of Bat persona people. That the movies we watch haven't really delved too much into. Like a little bit with some Robin here and there. Occasionally we get a Batgirl, but this is the first one I think we've watched where that's really the point. That it is not just there, but like it is the core of both the narrative and the thematic ambitions. This idea of like an extended Bat family, that Batman cannot work alone. So yeah, shall I continue?
Okay, just to note, when he does that, he's imitating my father, because my father does that sometimes.
You don't have to name them.
Well, you do it all the time. They're not going to know what you're talking
But to be fair, he doesn't do it as exaggeratedly. He'll just be like,
yeah,
but I go,
I'll ask him a question and be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
we love Gary. Shout out to Gary.
Shout out.
Well, he's a truck driver, so maybe he could be listening to these hours on the road. He could listen to our whole backlog.
Shout out to Gary. Like when Joker says, like, you know, after like all these years, you never once have said, "I hate you, Joker." So I think it's always like about. I think it's about like verbalizing that, because it's like
admitting, like, these people are already in your life.
Yeah.
But, like, you want to pretend like...
It's like, once you say it out loud... Yeah, like, once you say it out loud, then, like, you're able to grasp it. Whereas, like, right now...
Saying it out loud makes it real.
In your mind, you can kind of, like, trick yourself into being...
Or, like, rationalize it away.
You know,
like,
whatever.
Kinda,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I actually thought about it and was like, I don't think he ever has said, "I hate you." That's weird.
I don't know what the context would be. I hate you, Joker. I don't know why he would ever say that, but...
He's like, what about the thing with the boats? This is not like the time with the boats. I thought that
What about the parade with Prince music?
That was
like those references,
funny.
And you're like...
I know, that's so funny.
Your sisters even watched The Dark Knight.
I don't know.
I'm not trying to be like an old, like, oh.
I turned to her.
Oh, you like the Beatles? Name 5 of their songs. Like,
I turned to her and was like, "Oh, do you get that reference?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, good, because it's funny. It's funny when you get the reference."
That's probably a very enjoyable experience for them, is for you to every 5 minutes go, did you get that reference?
I only asked a few times.
Okay, I'm moving on. Chris McKay's proposal to combine all of the Batman eras featured in the comic book series in various media formats, including movies and comic series, despite a couple of issues, including the total inconsistency inherent in such a task, and Lego rejecting some of the characters he proposed to include in the film. This idea of doing all of these different versions, was based on his desire of how to portray Robin within the film's setting. In an interview regarding the version of the superhero duo, McKay stated, quote, "I was thinking that we were basically taking the Burt Ward Robin and sticking him in the Batmobile with the Zack Snyder / Ben Affleck Batman, or the Frank Miller Batman." That's actually really funny. And putting these two different energies together. Somebody who's like the grumpiest, darkest, grittiest, broodiest Batman with the most positive, indefatigable kid. End quote. That's actually a really smart kind of comedic choice.
Yeah.
Right? And that's also something, again, it's a shame that we're not talking about like the Ben Affleck version of that character, of this character, in this season. If we do a season on the DCEU.
We're not doing that one.
We're not doing the DCEU, right? And again, there was no way to make this work, right? Because if we were just to watch...
Is it more about Superman?
No, it's just a shared universe, and it's like, you have like one, it's like the MCU where it's like all these different characters.
So?
But it's like, okay, so if we were to include that, what movies do we include? Does the movie have to have Batman in the title? Does it have to feature Batman? In which case, then, we'll be starting with, like, the second movie in the franchise, and you'll be confused, because, like, what happened in the first one? So then you include the Superman movie in our Batman... So I found there was no good solution. The cleanest solution was just, if it's in some kind of shared continuity, and it's relevant...
Yeah.
It's not included. Whereas with this, we did a lot of DCAU stuff, but because most of the stories are very standalone, like, you didn't need to really watch, a lot of the Batman animated series to understand Mask of the Phantasm. You could just watch that.
Yeah.
But anywho, I do really like this idea of like, it's also then a commentary on how often Batman has changed in terms of like the tone, and also not only how often, but like the range between like the two extremes.
Yeah.
Like the silliest and the darkest Batman is such a wide gap.
Yeah. That was something.
Whereas like the silliest and darkest Superman's is not as wide of a gap. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's something that I appreciated, I think, because...
The Frank Miller Batman with Burt Ward's Robin. I didn't think of that watching this, but that's exactly what it is.
I don't know. I just... I forgot what I was going to say, but... I like that it, like...
He's like, do we have a bedtime? Vigilantes don't have bedtimes. What's the vigilante rule on cookies? He's like, the vigilante rule on cookies. Unlimited.
No, but I appreciated that, with all the irreverences, that it's also pointing out the consistencies, and it's like, it's like the silliest Batman with the Batsui? What?
Batoozy.
Chops away.
Yeah, Batsui. I've never heard it. I didn't know this word until the last episode. So for all I know, it's pronounced a different way, but I'm saying Batoozy. Bat-oozy. Probably because it's meant to be, it's supposed to sound like Middle Eastern because it's from that episode where he's trying to impress like that like pharaoh villain guy. Anyway.
Which is, I guess is a real guy.
Real villain. He's not real. Historically real.
There's so many fucking hilarious villains. Oh my gosh.
Why does it have to be fucking hilarious villains? Why can't it just be
there's so many hilarious villains.
Why do you have to curse?
And it was like,
I'm gonna get a bar of soap and wash your mouth. Sorry.
And Barbara even... They were like all the Z levels. It was like the Condiment King and the Egghead. He's back. Egghead is back. And,
throwing eggs at people.
The little Pharaoh guy. And it was
they
just
should have
so
Egghead
funny.
be in the new Robert Pattinson one. Egghead.
It's just so funny. So I really appreciated, since it's going to be silly and make fun of itself, that it also calls out like it's like so silly, but then also so brooding, and it's like so
because
silly.
80 years of comic history, like there's so many issues. Because assume there's just one line of Batman comics, which is not true. There's dozens of different other spin-off, right? Yeah. But if you have one comic line for 80 years and you release 12 issues a year, 12 times 80 is what? Like almost 700. You can't just have like 10 really cool villains. You're gonna need an Egghead. I wonder if Condiment Man is real, or Chemo. Like you're gonna need random characters to fill out the roster. They can't be the Joker every time.
Guys. But yeah, that was funny. I don't know.
Shall I continue?
Yeah.
As part of its production, the film was designed to make numerous references to previous Batman films, cartoons, and comics. In two distinct scenes where Barbara Gordon depicts Batman's long history of services for the police, and Alfred also quotes Batman's previous films as previous moments of emotional crisis. Yeah, so it's not just like specific line or throwaways. Like there is moments where they just basically do kind of like remember like a little like kind of like in rapid succession.
It's like it's kind of
like you think you're going through another emotional crisis that you did in 2016, like in 2012, and 2008, and 2005, and 1997. It's basically going through all the mainline Batman movies.
Yeah, which I thought it was interesting and like kind of creative that they not only just like called it out for the sake of it, but they like made it his character, right? It wasn't just like, oh, this happened. It was like you went through a phase, or like, why did you do this, or whatever.
They kind of paint them as phases.
Yeah. As opposed to just like, oh, look, when he used to be a different style. It was like more of his character.
Yeah. Last little bit here before we get into more of our thoughts. In terms of its release, the Lego Batman movie is notably the first animated movie based on Batman to receive a full theatrical release since Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, wow.
Again, there was a few others, but they were like very limited releases.
Yeah, wow.
So this was like the first one in...
It's like 24 years. 24 years. Yeah.
Yep, a boot.
No, 20...
No, 24, yeah, 2017, 19... Yeah, 24. 24? You were right, yeah. But yeah, so let's get into some of my notes here. Some of these we've already kind of talked about. I said great animation. I just wrote here, it's a great parody of Batman. It's a great commentary on what Batman has become, especially by 2017. Because again, what's fresh in people's minds in the early 2017 is like that Ben Affleck version. Which, again, every Batman is the darkest Batman, as we've talked about.
I wish I've seen that, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you should have. Because even if we didn't watch it for the show, if you had seen it, we can at least reference it. But I've seen it, but you haven't. So it's hard to kind of talk about it. But.
It just, I don't know. It all just looked very silly. And my
very...
stepdad was like going... I remember my stepdad getting ready to go see like the Superman versus Batman or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, aren't they supposed to be friends? Like, what is going...
Well, occasionally they fight. As we saw in The Dark Knight
whatever.
Returns. And we talked about when we talked about The Dark Knight Returns, Zack Snyder really loves The Dark Knight Returns. And subsequently his version of Batman is like very dark and kind of morally ambiguous. Do you want me to close that blind? Viviana, we're it's the sun's starting to set.
You don't have to tell people. No, my eyes are burning a little. I think from my face lotion. I don't know.
Oh no. Hope you're not having an allergic reaction.
No. I just...
Well, if you do, we can then sue, and this will be like evidence in the case against the company. Like we have on record, like he described her symptoms in real time.
No, I think because it has sunscreen and it has SPF.
Okay,
but then
it could sting.
But
Yeah.
what?
It could sting. Like if you get sunscreen.
Oh
in your eyes.
yeah, but then also it's like the winter time, so like
that happened to me in Disney World. Remember?
what? Oh, you got
I went
it in
to
your
Disney.
eye.
I got sunscreen in my eye.
Oh yeah.
And I would start to like by accident.
it was
and
like
then
blurry.
It was like my eyes were burning, and I couldn't keep my eyes open.
Yeah.
But there was no way to like get it out because my hands had sunscreen on them.
Yeah.
So I had to like would get what. Anyway,
Anyways, it has SPF in it, but it is winter time, and ever since I got COVID back in the day, I don't even know when I got it, 2022. Things have changed for me and my body, and one of the things is
Are you
now
growing hair in places that wasn't there before?
No.
Oh, you're not going through puberty.
No, I'm not going through puberty.
Well, COVID messes with your DNA. COVID vaccine messes with your DNA, so it probably went through a second puberty.
I wish I could get some hand sanitizer and inject it up and like antibacterial the inside of my body.
Yes, as we know, just inject Clorox and it will defend against COVID.
How does one?
Anyway, going back to Batman.
But what I was gonna say is that when it gets really cold, I start to get like eczema and like dry patches on my eyes. So I put some on my eyes, but that's the wrong lotion to put on. But I don't think I have any of the special lotion. So yeah, here we are.
Okay. Anyway. So Zack Snyder is very much into like that darker, more morally ambiguous version. So his dream would we've talked about this before. His dream would be to just do a straight adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns. He could not do that. So a lot of elements of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. It features a lot of elements from The Dark Knight Returns, including like Batman Superman fighting. The suit that he wears in that is very similar to the Dark Knight Returns version. Things like that.
I remember even Superman's was dark too, right? Like it was...
The thing about that franchise is that it's just a very dark interpretation of the characters. Like Superman is also morally ambiguous, and I feel like that's like the fun of kind of putting Batman and Superman, if not fighting, but just like putting them in a room together, is like that contrast of like worldviews.
Yeah.
But Superman in that version is like also very like morally ambiguous. So it was just a very, very, very polarizing take on those characters. And it's
it always looks cloudy. It's
about
like...
10 years of literally the only film that was really well liked was Wonder Woman. And even that one I only find is okay, but that one was like the most successful one. Like
Wonder Woman sucked.
Thank you. I feel like if I say that, then I'm sexist. But you're a woman, so thank you for saying it.
I don't know.
We'll get there eventually. Maybe we should do that soon. Not for our next
Wonder
franchise.
Woman?
The DCEU.
Did they have enough? Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I was so excited, and then I was just like...
I went with my mom. She was excited too. Yeah. That's how it made $1 billion, because women were like, sisters are doing it for themselves. And everyone went. Like with Black Panther, like the black community really rallied around the film.
Yeah.
But not quite around the sequel, unfortunately. Which I actually find a little bit better than the first one.
But no, yeah, I watched it at my grandma's house, and I was like,
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about with our bonus episode on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which you guys should go listen to. It just came out before this.
Go listen.
But maybe a week or two ago. But it's kind of like we talked about with Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character. You were saying, like, it's just like a typical male character, but they've made her female. And that's kind of like with Wonder Woman. Like, it's just as good as any other superhero movie that was coming out at the time.
Yeah.
But now it's a female-led. I remember friends of mine talking about being like, no, it's so much better than those. I'm like, it's the same quality as most of these, like, generic superhero movies that were coming out in, like, the mid-2010s. It's just a female-led character, which is important.
Yeah.
But its social importance and historical importance
Yeah.
really has nothing to do with its actual quality.
Yeah.
They're two separate things.
Yeah.
And you can appreciate it for its historical and social significance while also being like, is it a particularly great movie? Not really. But
Well, for Phoebe, I was talking about more so about like just switching out genders for like kind of bad or like ambiguous characters. So it's like, oh, what? So is this behavior acceptable now because it's a woman? Like, you know, but I see what you're saying for Wonder Woman. And yeah, I was kind of let down about the whole thing. And then I also thought it was weird that the lasso of truth was like pink. I was like, okay, you don't have to
I
don't have to like.
don't remember it being pink. I thought it was like gold.
No, I thought it was gonna be gold too, but it was pink.
I don't know if that's true. I don't remember those.
No, not the rope itself, but like when she uses it, the glow.
Yeah, I thought the glow was like gold, like yellowy.
I don't know. Maybe it was the TV, but I remember it being pink, and I was like, okay.
Were you watching a VHS version? As we know, Viviana's grandparents still have like a very extensive VHS collection. So when we went to visit, they were like, let's watch Men in Black. And I thought they would like rent it like on Amazon or like go to a streaming service. No, they whipped out the VHS and we watched it in like 4:3 pan and scan. I was like, I haven't watched a VHS in like 15 years. It was actually kind of cool because again, I hadn't.
It was cool. I'm always surprised.
And it had the bonus features after the credits. It was like a VHS thing because there's no menu.
Yes, and it had the music video.
The music video, yep, that was a classic. Anyway, let's bring it back.
I'm very surprised every time I go to my grandma's house. I don't know what.
Let's bring it back to Lego Batman.
But
bring it back to Lego Batman.
What were we talking about?
I was just saying that this movie is very much it's a commentary on all of Batman, as we had said, but very much a reaction to that Ben Affleck version, which had just been introduced only a year prior. Like I remember it was also like early 2016.
Well, I feel like it doesn't. I feel like it leans into it like not super heavily.
No, I'm just saying.
I don't know how to.
I'm not saying textually. I'm just saying like that's what people are going into this movie. That's what's in their mind.
Oh yes. So
it's very much like it's like we're watching it in a different context. You and I in 2024, but people going to the theater, the Ben Affleck version is very fresh in their mind.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you.
So it's like this is a great kind of lampooning of dark, gritty Batman, which was like the Batman of that.
Yeah, because I was gonna say like it seems more like for comedy, like he's really not. And that's like the whole point, or is that like he's really softy, but like he's just. I fucking love when he's like, oh, you gotta go to the retirement party, and he's like, no, I don't want to go, and he's like flipping around on the floor. He's like, I feel like that's me. It's like, oh, you can go out now, you can go make new friends now.
No. He's like, wicked, no. But that's something I really like about this movie is like, yes, it's funny when they are like poke fun at Adam West and all this stuff, but like the funniest parts of this movie are just like things that are just funny. Like it has like that classic style of humor that the Lego movie also featured, where it's like it's just things that are funny, like when they're introducing Jim Gordon's retirement party. They're announcing the new commissioner, his daughter. Nepotism? Question mark. Nepotism. And then they're showing she went to the Harvard for police.
Yeah.
Which at first I thought it was saying like Harvard University supports the police.
No.
Like where it's like we back the blue.
No, she went to
like the Harvard for police. But they're like she's gonna reform policing with statistics and compassion. So like it's like just
point plan.
Like that's just funny. You know what I mean? It's not poking fun at like this 1989 Batman story. It's just funny, right? But yeah, so that's kind of something interesting that we've talked about. And I think this is like the first movie to really explore is like, she basically wants to do away with Batman. She's like why should this guy be able to dress up and basically beat up poor people? And she says that explicitly. That's almost a direct quote from her. You know, and that's kind of reallocating resources and like, you know, and again, because of the Joker's plan. So the Joker's plan is to turn himself in to then, though it's very convoluted because it's like a lot of things have to happen in order for it to work. Is like he turns himself in and he knows Batman won't be satisfied with that. So he'll be like, he needs to be somewhere worse than prison. He needs to go to the Phantom Zone. So the Joker will end up in the Phantom Zone, link up with all these like other villains from other media properties, which I thought were just Warner Brothers, but also had like Jaws and I think like the Jurassic Park and King Kong, but those are Universal.
Was that Jaws or was that
just a shark?
Was that just the shark from the 60s? I don't know.
I think it's supposed to be Jaws. I think the subtitle said like Jaws.
The subtitle says Jaws, but I don't know.
I think it's meant to be Jaws, but the joke is that like the shark repellent comes in handy. It's Jaws, right? But anyway, so that's his plan. So it's very convoluted. So it's like the only way for this to work is that if he has to know Batman will do what he does.
Was that the ultimate plan? Or was that just a second?
The plan was to end up in the Phantom Zone all along. Okay,
to be proven that he is his worst enemy.
Like, yeah, then come back and like be like, I'm gonna take over the world, and it's like, see, I how could I not be your worst enemy? But anyway, so then this interesting question is raised: is like, what does Batman do when there's no crime?
Yeah,
like without a purpose, like what, like how does Bruce cope? And that's actually really interesting idea that they don't touch on a bunch, except like he basically creates problems. Like he's like, oh, like, yes, the Joker is pacified essentially, but he's really not. Like he's gonna break out. This is all part of his plan. So we gotta send him to the Phantom Zone. Like he invents problems to solve. Yeah. You know, and I think that's kind of interesting. So like, you know, he's like spying on Arkham and Barbara's like, what are you doing? Yoga. And he's like,
I think that's interesting because I forgot what I was gonna say. I was waiting for you to be done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't know.
So yeah, I thought
that like basically he's like null and void. He's like irrelevant because, you know, there are no like superheroes, so you know all the petty crime and stuff. Like he doesn't need to Barbara says, like he doesn't need to be going around dressed up in a bat costume, like punching like petty criminals. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
So like now he has nothing to do because everyone's captured.
Like Batman's useful when there are equal opposite forces.
Yeah.
But when it's just like a burglary, you probably don't need a vigilante to be handling things like that, right?
There's nothing to vigilante.
Yeah.
But I think it I mean, it doesn't talk too much about it, but it also really kind of highlights what we've been talking about in terms of, and something we'll probably talk a lot about in the retrospective of like just like Batman as a character and like, is he a good guy? Like, is he a part of police? Like, because like here he's like actively not wanting to work with Barbara, and like the whole thing is played like as a team, but really he wants to work outside of the law and not, you know, have to work with the police and everything, kind of do what he wants. So I think just the ethics of Batman is a little highlighted, and not too delved into, but something that we've definitely noticed watching all the different things.
Absolutely. But yeah, so then the Joker ends up in the Phantom Zone. I have mixed feelings about this. I think the original Lego movie had a really good excuse for using all of these different characters from these different media properties, because that represents like what Lego is.
Oh, yes.
Right? Is like,
they go to the different worlds, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it involves different characters, and like remember they at that like in like the middle they go to like there's like a council and they have like all these characters like Shaquille O'Neal and Abraham Lincoln, right? Yes. So like that makes sense for that story because it's already inherently a crossover story. I'm of a mixed I'm conflicted about them. Like Batman has such a rich base of characters that I don't know if it was narratively necessary to like include these non-Batman characters. Like yes, it's funny that Sauron is there and King Kong and Godzilla and the Wicked Witch and Agent Smith from the Matrix, but like I'm not sure what they add.
Well,
and if this is a Lego Batman movie, I feel like there's already such a large base of characters to already choose from. I feel like it's like why kind of like talking about with the original Lego movie about expanding out to like the real world.
Yeah.
Like keep it within Batman.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what it serves other than just like I wasn't expecting the Wicked Witch to get punched by Dick Grayson, so I don't know.
Well, I think it maybe is similar to the shark spray situation. Like, you know, he's like, oh, a team of villains fighting villains. Like, that's so stupid. But then, like, that ends up needing to happen. So I don't know. I think it was just that distinction of like. I
think it's just more for like isn't that cool?
Like they have to team up and then against something else, but what else?
I know, but I think that's only you only have to do that. Like that's under the assumption that you have to do the story that they end up doing.
No,
right?
Yeah.
Like you can write it from the jump in a different way.
That's true.
So I see what you're saying, but I just feel like it kind of pulls itself out, where we spend a lot of time doing not Batman things. So I don't know. Also, another thing that I'm just going through my list of grievances here, but another thing that I kind of had an issue with. I remember when I first saw it, and I thought the same thing. I think the same thing now. That it's not a super big problem, but this movie it has the issue that a lot of spin-offs will have, where when you make a side character into like the main character of their own story.
Yeah.
If you leave them as they are, like you're damned if you, damned if you're done. And what I mean by this is like a side character, even if they're like essentially the secondary most important character, a side character has different necessities from a writing perspective, right? Your main focus as a writer is like really exploring like the main character. That's why they're the main character, right? So a secondary character should also like still go through an arc and change and be complex, but that's not the main objective, right? For them. Do you follow me so far?
Yeah. Are you saying that Batman's still a secondary character?
No, I'm saying he was a secondary character.
No, I know.
In the Lego movie.
Yeah.
But now he is the main character. But oftentimes secondary characters have a very clear identity, and they often don't have like a very like complex arc.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when you do this, it kind of feels like you're trying to make something a thing that's not a thing. That it's like, how do I put this? Like, here's an example. A very also contemporary to this. Finding Dory. I find, is there really enough about Dory to make a compelling story where she is the protagonist? I would say no.
No.
But they've elevated her from side character. Like she was a very well textured and three-dimensional character in Finding Nemo, but she was a secondary character. She wasn't designed to be a primary protagonist. That's how I kind of feel here. That Batman, Will Arnett's version,
even though
is a little one.
Batman?
Yeah, because this version of Batman is very one note, performance-wise. To the point where he's literally using the Batman voice as Bruce, which I find really annoying because in the Lego movie there is one scene where he is Bruce Wayne and he has like a normal voice. So I feel like that was just because they like, isn't it so? Because everyone loved Will Arnett's dark Batman voice, so it's like let's just like,
yeah.
So his performance feels very one note. It's the script gives Batman an arc, but and then his actions, certain actions of his are, show a change. But his performance, he feels like the same character throughout because the secondary character is mostly the same throughout. So that's I don't know. How did you feel about that?
I gotcha. I don't really know. I'm trying to see, like, what you're talking about, but...
I'm just saying he felt a little one-dimensional.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
By nature of originating as a side character. At least this version of Batman.
But I feel like they were all kind of, like, one-dimensional, and they all were just who they were. Like, there was not a lot of...
But they're not the protagonist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not expressing it well. Maybe I need to cook. I've been trying to cook this idea for 7 years now, and maybe I need another 7. But that's how I feel. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But overall, I liked it. Those are all my notes. Overall, I liked it.
Nice.
I think it has some flaws, but I think it's a certainly enjoyable time. And it's not super long. It's like less than 2 hours, so it's like a nice fun watch.
Yeah.
Do you want some trivia?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Will Arnett acknowledged that the raspy, whispery voice he used for Batman is the same voice he uses with his children when he's giving them important parenting information.
That's scary.
That's kind of, yeah. Maybe it's to impose a seriousness to it. Bane's voice and accent in this movie is based on Tom Hardy's portrayal of Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, which is very. The voice is done by Doug Benson, a stand-up comedian and podcaster who has done his comedic impression on Hardy's Bane since The Dark Knight Rises was released in 2012. The directors were fans of Benson's podcast and hired him based on that.
Nice.
So maybe someone will hear me doing an impersonation of someone on these shows, and I'll get asked to be in like a big actual
Finally,
movie.
my big break in accents.
You will never get you're never gonna make it, kid. You don't got what it takes.
He says I'm really bad, but I think I'm pretty all right.
It's some of the worst accents I've ever heard in my life. Will Arnett revealed in an interview about how voicing Batman affected his voice, saying, quote, "It's real gravelly. It doesn't feel great doing it a lot. So when we do the sessions that are like 4 hours long, it would hurt. It's hard to sing doing it because I'm a bad singer anyway. So I'm thinking about trying to keep in time and then doing the voice. The rap at the end of the movie was hard. I told the songwriters, this is how it's going to be. I can't do it any better. And then all the things they call exertions like running, jumping, you have to do all those kind of separately and sort of shouting stuff too. To shout doing the Batman voice is rough. It's like the things where he's like, ugh, ugh, ugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like things like that. So I can imagine I was like, because that's the thing, because he's just a side character in the other one, but he's like the majority of this movie, so that must have been very hard to do.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, who appeared in the Dark Knight trilogy and the Lego movie, said that Batman in the Lego movie is his favorite incarnation of the character. He's like, I've been with the goat, and the goat's not the goat. Zach Galifianakis, who voices the Joker, he stated in an interview about voicing the Joker, quote, "It was really fun. I've only done a couple of sessions. It's crazy. I'm lucky. I was telling diarrhea jokes in coffee houses 10 years ago, so I'm very fortunate." End quote. So this is probably like as like they were making it.
Yeah, you could say so.
I found this one very interesting. Zoe Kravitz voices Catwoman in this film. She would go on to portray Catwoman in the live-action The Batman in 2022.
Yes.
Finally. How do they decide who to cast it? Because she only has like one line. So how do they decide, like, let's give this to
Meow,
Zoe
meow.
Kravitz? She's like, let's do this, meow, meow.
I don't know, but finally, some justice for Zoe, man.
Many people thought that this would be nominated for the... Here's the trivia bit I was talking about. Many people thought that this would be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, but just like the original Lego movie, it ended up being snubbed. That made them mad enough, fans that is, but they were even madder when the film The Boss Baby was nominated, despite its heavily mixed to negative reception falling short of this film's highly positive reception. The Boss Baby is way better than this. Sorry.
What?
I love The Boss Baby. Will Arnett and Michael Cera played uncle and nephew, respectively, in Arrested Development.
Oh, they knew each other.
They knew each other. Ralph Fiennes played Voldemort in the Harry Potter franchise. In this film, he doesn't reprise his role as Voldemort, because Voldemort's in this movie, of course. But instead, he plays Alfred.
Yes. I thought it was funny, but... Because it's also the same with some other people, but they switched them around. Mm-hmm. Like, I think Hector is in it, but he's not playing Bane.
Because he played that one time.
He played,
in The Voice, yeah.
Something else.
When Batman chases the Joker through the Hall of Mirrors toward the end of the film, it's a clear reference to both The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller and The Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Boland.
Yes! It was like that scene.
Lots of fun house
It was like
stuff.
that scene with Nightwing.
And I was going to say, and Batman Unlimited Monster Mayhem!
Yes!
According to the Lego movie, the entire fictional universe exists in the Man Upstairs basement workshop. Therefore, the two tectonic plates on which Gotham City stands are most likely two tables pushed together in the, quote, real world.
Obviously.
That's just kind of funny. On a marquee in the background in Gotham is a 2 Shades Darker screening at that theater. 50 Shades Darker screened at theaters nationwide the same weekend as the Lego Batman movie.
Oh my gosh.
In terms of critical reception at the time, contemporary reviews, Rotten Tomatoes has a 90%, so pretty well liked. The critical consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is, quote, the Lego Batman movie continues its blockbuster franchise's winning streak with another round of dizzyingly funny and beautifully animated family-friendly mayhem. Mike Ryan of Uproxx gave the film a positive review, praising its comedy and saying, quote, the Lego Batman movie isn't the same experience as watching the Lego movie, but I also don't think it's trying to be. It's trying to be a fun superhero movie with clever callbacks to previous Batman films. Every single Batman movie, all the way back to the 1940 serials, are referenced. That can at least provide DC superhero fans with a taste of fun amidst all the doom and gloom. That can either be a reference to the real world or the current DC Cinematic Universe films. You can choose either one you want, or both. End quote. I think that's a good point. And again, I think that kind of sums up why I've included it in our show, as opposed to keeping it Lego, is because it has very different aims than the Lego movies.
Yeah.
It's very much like a Batman movie that happens to be connected to this other thing, so I feel like it was relevant to include it here.
Yeah, and there are very differing approaches to Batman. There's like this one and like what's his name? What's his name? Catman.
Adam West.
Like this one and Adam West. They're like all for silly Batman, but then like other people are like all for like dark Batman. So it's very funny seeing this like.
You get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, like two of them like growing at the same time.
Yeah. In terms of modern reaction, on Letterboxd has a 3.7 out of 5. Here are some Letterboxd reviews, as we are wont to do. Lily writes, quote, Batman and Joker should have kissed.
Yes.
Hoover writes, similarly, quote, Batman and Joker have explored each other's bodies.
Oh.
Not that they should.
I hope not, though, because Joker's teeth are very pointy.
They are. That'd be very painful fellatio. Anyway, and then Kayla writes, Christopher Nolan is shaking.
He sure as hell is.
Shaking in all caps. In terms of the legacy of this film, on December 5th, 2018, McKay announced a sequel to the film was in the works, with him returning to direct. The film was set for release in 2022. I don't remember that coming out. Do you? However, while the rights of DC Comics are owned by Warner Brothers, Universal Pictures acquired the film rights to the Lego Movie franchise in 2020, effectively canceling the sequel. So interesting. I didn't know Universal acquired those rights. The sequel would have focused on Batman's relationship with the Justice League, particularly Superman, and the main villains would have been Lex Luthor and OMAC, who is a type of cyborg. The film was tentatively titled Lego Super Friends.
That was so sad. They were all having a party without it.
Yeah, because he's mean.
Even the super dog was there.
He was the DJ. Crypto the super dog. Okay. All right, Viviana. Let's get down to brass tacks here. What's your favorite part? Scene, character, actor, line?
Oh, my frick. I don't know.
Oh!
Probably Batman himself and just like all the reactions and
my favorite part of this Batman movie? Batman.
And I think it's funny how he takes like 5 or 6 bites and then just like finishes a whole lobster. But then I also like that Sauron is in it, and I think that's funny.
You've brought up Sauron like 10 times.
I fucking love Lord of the Rings. Thank you, Jake, my cousin, introducing the Lord of the Rings to me. Although I was afraid of Gollum being behind the shower curtain for a few weeks.
Why would he be in your bath? Why have all the bathrooms in the world? And all the gin joints in all the world. Why would he be in your bathroom?
I don't know, but I was terrified. But now I'm not, so it's okay. Same thing with you and the Muppets. Thank you. You're all
exposing you to
exposing me to the world. So I'd say probably Batman and Sauron.
Okay. My favorite part, I don't know. What would be my favorite part? I think just like all that humor again. That's just like inherently funny. Right. So again, I'll give it another shout out. She's gonna reinvent policing with statistics and compassion. Okay, Viviana, 1 to 10.
I thought she had a lot of good ideas.
She did have some good ideas. What? But here's my good idea. You're gonna tell me what you give this movie 1 to 10.
What did you just say? The last word?
Oh! A 10?
I'm giving it a 10.
A 10? Holy moly!
Holy mackerel!
I think this is a first. I don't think you've ever given any movie, not just in Batman, in any of our previous episodes for our other franchises. I don't think you've given anything a 10.
No, I don't think so.
Holy mackerel, a 10. So it's your favorite? Holy moly!
Well, and the second one is The Dark Knight Rises. With a 9.
And Monster Mayhem is still number 5.
And then the third is Batman Begins at number 8. So, you know.
Yeah. Okay, this is a pretty decent list.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna give this a 7. Again, I think it's good. But I think some of its issues just hold it back from it being like one of my favorites. So let's take a look here. So my top 7 is Batman Year One, below Killing Joke, or this. I don't know. I know I like The Killing Joke a lot more than most people.
Yeah.
I think I'll put this above The Killing Joke.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think just by default, because The Killing Joke does have like the issue of having that awful prologue section, and just being very muddled. Whereas this at least is like a very clear vision for what it's trying to be. So yes, that would put it at my number 5 actually, which I was not expecting.
Nice.
So we'll see what happens with that. Because of that, and since you put this at the top, this might end up being the number 1 when we combine the ranking. Just by default, because you've made it the number 1 for you. That's crazy. Wow.
Cool when you're part of a team.
Everything is awesome. When that's it for the week's episode of Now That's What I Call Franchise. Next week, we'll be watching the next film in the franchise, the 2017 film Batman and Harley Quinn. Viviana, where can they find us?
Business. Is this working?
No. That's a reference to the Lego movie.
I know.
We're not talking about that one.
Okay.
Where can they find us?
Why is it Batman and Harley Quinn and not Joker and Harley? Whatever. We'll find out. You guys can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Franchise Podcast.
That was very aggressive.
That was my announcer voice in like the 1940s. Don't fail to see. Don't fail to miss.
We know you have many podcasting options, and we thank you for choosing us. Peace out, guys.
Later, Gators.